Hello everyone, welcome back to the fairy tale story Morrigan. Let's continue as Tam touched his shalalach, remember? He knew in that instant a shalalach was made of blackthorn wood, and the tree of trees, the sacred tree surrounding the well, was the rebirth of the stolen shalalahs. The trees, Dion's well keeps the Shillelahs alive, he said aloud, as he finished his thought. Owen, I think I figured it out. She's keeping the Shillelahs alive. But why? Take me there. Where are you? Above you? Tam looked up. He hadn't noticed the ceiling. It was domed, much like the one over the living room, 2 circular rooms. How odd was that? But Dion was a billionaire, a billion times over. He could have anything he wanted. He could buy anything he wanted. He stared at the ceiling as he clutched his bodhran. Was it possible there was a room there, above the library? Tam put his drum back in its case along with the tapper. Grabbing the shalalah, he ran to the door, thinking he could do a bit of exploring. It was locked. He jerked it back and forth, but the door remained locked. Dion had locked him in the library. Why? They were supposed to go to the well, heal Owen, unless that wasn't the real plan. You're above me, in a room. I don't know, I can't see. He looked at the Shillalach. Dion said he could only go where he'd been before. So what happened if he tried going where he hadn't? What would be the outcome? Boggs hadn't said what it would be, only giving his usual shrug. Is Uncle aware he had been locked in the library? Was the question running in his mind. I'm going to try. Think of my bow. Think of my bow. Tam closed his eyes and thought about the bow. He'd seen it in a hand on a back. He imagined her firing it, touching it, and he heard it singing to her. No, it sang to him. Test high, he said, releasing the shalallah and using the word for traveller. Tam felt the floor drop out from beneath him in seconds before he landed on something hard again. He dropped and rolled, then came up with the shalallah in front of him. Not that it mattered. He didn't think he was in Dion's fortress any more, not unless in his Wheldon hospital wing. The bright lights made him squint as he came up on his feet. He stood in a hospital room, intensive care by the looks of the machines surrounding someone in a bed. Dark red hair on the white sheets. Tam moved closer and looked down at the encumbered person. Owen, he said softly. How did you get in here? The voice startled him as the shalallah vanished. He turned and faced a nurse in scrubs with a very prickly expression. Sorry, I was looking for Owen's room? Well, you found it. But she's not receiving visitors. Her uncle gave strict instructions. She wasn't to see anyone. Oh. Tam didn't know she had an uncle. He hated the fact he barely knew her. And yet, she was in this mess because of him. Was her uncle tall, with long blonde hair? Very thin, by any chance? Yes. Dion. Tam kept his hands in front of him, just so she could see them. I'm sorry. I'm a boyfriend. I've been out of town and I just heard she was here. Can you tell me what happened? I promise I'll leave with no problems. I'm just concerned. He smiled at her and leaned forward, thinking only thoughts of cooperation and kindness. The nurse sighed and seemed to think it over. We don't really know what happened, but she was injured from a pipe. Her uncle said she fell into it, but with other injuries. Yeah, she's got multiple contusions, which could be from a fall, but there's a lot that seem to have been made before the injury from the actual pipe. What? I shouldn't get into it, and you need to leave. Just know, her uncle's paying for the best care and security for her, so whoever is trying to kill her can't get in here. I got in here. Tam licked his lips. One more thing. Has her uncle been to see her? Yes, he just left. Should I stop him? Oh no, I don't want to cause a problem. Is that the door out? Yes. Tam smiled, stepped out of the room. The main station was empty, so he ducked inside the closet. An empty room, actually, and he's called his shillelagh. What the hell is Dion playing at? He locked me in his library, and now I find Owen's across town on life support in Massachusetts General Hospital. General Hospital. Feeling a bit more confident about his travelling abilities, he thought of the coordinates Dion had made him memorize and honed in on there. Teestelai, he said, but didn't shout it out this time. Again the floor dropped out from beneath him. He landed on soft grassy ground. Sun sifted through a thick canopy of trees overhead. As he rolled on the ground, he smelled the earth and felt dampness caress his cheek. This was the place in his dream, the 3 trees surrounding a centre well. He moved to his hands and knees and looked at the water, the reflection of the swaying green leaves overhead. Tam pushed up to just his knees and looked around. A forest surrounded the well as far as he could tell, and there was no one for miles. No one. He needed to test the water before he brought Owen here, but he didn't have an injury he could see. You're early, came a deep, sultry voice overhead. Remind me to kill that son of a bitch, Dion, next time I see him. He jumped back, brandishing the shillelagh. A note echoed in the forest, and to his surprise, the trees answered in harmony. Tam looked around for the voice, but he didn't see anyone or anything. A single crow's feather swayed in the breeze as it fell at his feet. He jumped back at something very large and very black, landing close to where he had been beside the well. It was a woman, a tall, blonde woman, large black eyes, enormous black feathered wings. She spread them out behind her, obscuring the well from view. Her lips were as black as her eyes, her teeth white as snow. So you are Tam Lin, and you're the Morrigan? You don't have to use the horrific. Morrigan will do, she smiled. Tam felt oily. You were supposed to bring me a Clorachan. Bring you? He kept the shillelagh between them. I was supposed to dip her in the water. Yes, I know. It was my plan. We figured if I could get inside that witch's head, I could get closer to you. Interesting how Dion neglected to tell you that you'd already found your shillelagh. Sorry, he neglected to tell me that. Dion made a deal with you. That's what we do, boy. We're a people of promise dealers. Tam licked his lips. So you were going to use Owen? Really? To control me? No, to prod you and find a shillelagh. Seems I'm too late, but no matter. No matter at all, I don't think. Do you? It's just one more piece of wood to add to my garden. She moved away and tucked her wings behind her back. Now, you can be a good little leprechaun and behave. Give me a shiny toy, and I'll let you say the life of your Clorachan. Or, she paused and faced him. I can take you now and let your little witch die. Either way, you become mine, and your shillelagh is added to my collection. Collection? Morrigan held up her hand, and a talk appeared, This one was different from the one Magnus had. This was more elaborate, thicker. The skin around his neck prickled at the memory of the iron's burn. He kept his eyes locked on her, unwilling to let her get behind him. He wasn't going to let her do what Magnus did. His mind continued to race ahead. Tam was told how the Morrigans stole all the shalalas and the fairy and put hooks on their owners. If that was true, and if his uncle didn't have a shalalach, then had he worn a toque as well? Come to think of it, he hadn't seen Bog's neck. And before recently, he hadn't seen Bog's in nearly a decade. And this is where you put the shalalaks. You bring them here, you put them in the water, and they become part of your original trees. Why? Morrigan laughed. A shillalagh is not the only from the will of a leprechaun, but a part of their soul. It also has the power of prophecy for their owners combined. I can see the future for all the people of my kingdom, when I surrender myself to the water. That's what I see. The water shows me everything when I surrender myself. Oh, that's how you knew about me. Of course. And that's how I know you will submit to me, just like all the other good little Unseelie have. I am the mother. Then she was gone. No lift of a wing, not even a stirring in the air. Holding out the shillelagh, he spun around, looking for her. She laughed, behind him. Too late. His muscles locked, and he found himself staring at the three trees, unable to speak, or to will his shillelagh away. Pretty Morrigan said, as she brushed her talons along his cheek, "It's very handsome. It's amazing how the plant world paints your kind as tiny bearded creatures, when in truth you have always been the most pleasing to the eye." She pressed her hands down on his shoulders. She was intense, that's a certain. You will be mine now, Tamlin, my aid, my right hand, and my search. Yes, I will search for the Wheldon more unseelie and bring them under my wings. He scoured everything he'd learned in the past week, everything Boggs, Dion, and even Owen had said. Boggs' words, though they might be said under the guise of Morrigan, felt the most true. When he talked about his Shalalah, he spoke with emotion, real emotion and revelation, an honest envy. He missed his power. He missed his tie to the earth. The Shalalah was a leprechaun's will. If this is my will, then I will myself away to break her gaze. Think the way Owen had done it was to distract Magnus. But Tam had no one here to distract Morrigan. He told no one he was going. So if he had to have a distraction, he'd have to make it himself. And if so, could he? Was it possible to do this? He had absolutely no idea. But he was going to give it a try, that's for sure. I mean, surely. The gaze might trap his body, but it didn't trap his mind. He stared straight ahead and thought of Owen, her body, her shape, her hair, but he thought of her dancing. Step dancing in a line of people, arms at her sides. He heard the music, the beat, the bodhran. He focused everything on that image, and then projected it into the trees. To his surprise, a greyish image of Owen appeared, dancing on the breeze. He heard the beat of a drum as it struck an old familiar rhythm. "Who's there?" Morrigan said. Her gaze broke. Tam could move. He flipped the shalalah around and turned with a yell and shoved the small end into Morrigan's belly. "I have a will of my own, and I also have my path, and it is not yours to control." He continued shoving until he skewered her, mirroring what Magnus had done to Owen. Morrigan screamed, and the place where he pierced her lit up like a Roman candle. She exploded in a flurry of crows that flew at him, scratched at his face, and then disappeared into the trees. Tam went down on his knees, his face stinging and his arms and shoulders burning. His shilalach was covered in some kind of black ochre. With a smile and a numbing feeling in his gut, he dipped it in the well. The water glowed blue as he pulled it out. It was pristine again. It looked like it had a few more carvings on it. When he cradled it to him, he felt it vibrate and thought he heard a laugh. Just a few things more to fix, he smiled. And then we can both rest. And that's the Morrigan. Of course, there is a whole full story of the Morrigan by the author, and I'll leave that in the description, guys. But anyway, if you want to read the full story, that's where you would have to go. Thank you so much for listening to these episodes. I know they were a bit longer than the others, but that's because it's a longer, intenser story. But thank you, and many blessings.